professionalism for which my service is famed. Their secrets will always be safe with us. And together we will work to bring the bloodshed to an end.
It was a rare public speech by the head of British intelligence. Moore said Russians may be moved to cooperate with MI6 due to what he called the inexorable decay of President Putin's government. He said this was shown by the Wagner Group's mutiny in June, saying Wagner leader Evgeny Prigozhin was utterly created by Putin, but still turned on him. He also said if Russian mercenaries could mutiny against their own government, they might do the same in African countries where they were posted, adding Russia had no interest in peace and stability in African nations. Russia announced on Monday it would exit a deal that permits shipments of grain out of the Ukraine via the Black Sea. How will this move impact the world, and what's being done about it? We speak to the president of the International Strategic Studies Association, Gregory Copley, to find out.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the actions being taken against DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Over a dozen state AGs, they put Fortune 100 companies on notice for these DEI policies, and they claim this amounts to discrimination. So, I mean, what's going on with this?
Well, over the last few decades, corporate America, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, these DEI departments at these major corporations had been using the jurisprudence around affirmative action dealing with higher ed, meaning times when higher ed institutions could take into account race and admissions. They were using that as sort of a legal fig leaf for interjecting racial considerations into promotion and hiring schemes in corporate America. Now, these were always very dubious legal justifications for what is effectively a gross violation of civil rights law here in the United States. But it served sort of as like a fig leaf, like some sort of at least something they could point to. But that's all moot now, and so these AGs are basically putting these corporations on notice that they're going to continue to engage in clearly racially biased promotion and hiring schemes, and they're going to suffer the legal consequences that come with that.
Does this go off the recent Supreme Court decision when it came to what they said of recognizing affirmative action as essentially being racial discrimination?
Exactly. The recent case against Harvard Law Harvard and NC North Carolina Chapel Hill basically said, listen, you can't take racial considerations into your admissions process anymore. That had been allowed under some previous jurisprudence. Never, to be clear, never had been openly allowed in corporate America, but these DEI programs had been kind of using the higher ed jurisprudence, these cases that really only just pertain to university admissions, to basically say, hey, we can take race into consideration when it comes to hiring and promotion, which is flatly illegal under different titles of the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, Title 14, I believe, yeah. Well, when it comes to this as well, I mean, what does this mean for the future of diversity, equity, and inclusion? What does it mean for these companies?
My hope is that it will mean the end of not only just these programs, but these departments. I've said many times, these DEI departments are cancerous, not just in the technical sense or the pejorative sense, but also in the technical sense. Their only job is to grow. They don't help deliver value to consumers. They don't help deliver value to shareholders. They don't help the company's bottom line. Their only mission is to grow in their size and to turn the corporation where they are into a political utility for the far left. So these are something that corporations should be doing away with anyway, but this is a particularly good reason, because if they consist in acting in racially biased ways, these AGs have put them on notice. They're going to suffer some severe legal consequences.
Actually, just clarify, I think it might be the 14th Amendment, but yeah, Civil Rights Act. But, it seems that this pushback started with Bud Light, and I don't think anyone anticipated it actually doing anything. We've seen boycotts before. They tend to not have much of an impact. They fizzle out, and BlackRock or other companies pour in money, and the value of the companies doesn't go down. But it seems like it's different this time. We saw those boycotts spread to other companies now. I mean, how big is this?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is the consequences of a buildup of reservoir of frustration with the average American consumer over basically about a decade of just being insulted directly by the companies that they're supposed to be serving their interests. And I think you're right. I think it certainly took Budweiser by surprise, but I think to some extent it took all of corporate America by surprise. I don't think they realize the extent to which companies like Target and Disney and Bud Light and a host of others continually attacking the values that the average consumer has in the United States has built this growing frustration. And you're right, previous boycotts were not as effective as the Bud Light boycott. But I think really what that speaks to is Bud Light one was really organic. This wasn't a particular group or leader calling for this. The average person saw the noxious activity that Bud Light was doing in pushing transgender ideology through their product and said, I don't want to have anything to do with this product, and I'm glad to see it fail. And so I think part of what you're seeing is people getting excited. They see those weekly sales numbers go down, and the average consumer just wants to see them go lower. So I think they've got a real problem on their hands, but it's a problem of their own making.
Hey, Will Hill, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
The various war games that were done ahead of time that predicted certain levels of advance, and that has slowed down. Why? Because that's a difference between war on paper and real war. These are real people in real machines that are out there really clearing real minefields, and they're really dying. So when that happens, units tend to slow down, and that's rightly so, in order to survive, in order to get through these minefields. So they're working their way through it. It is far from a failure, in my view. I think that it's way too early to make that kind of call.
And although the minefields appear to be slowing things down, the war may get more difficult for Russia. A video posted by the infamous Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin's press service on Telegram said the Wagner Group will no longer fight in Ukraine for now. And the Wagner Group fighters were ordered to gather their strength for a new journey to Africa, where the force has been known to operate. And another new development, the Department of Defense has announced a new security assistance package for Ukraine. This one is valued at $1.3 billion. It will include 4 air defense systems, mine-clearing equipment, and other resources to help support Ukraine's fight against Russia. Jason Perry, NTD News.
On how the DOJ handled Hunter Biden's tax violations.
Between 2014 and 2019, this brings the total amount of foreign income streams received to approximately $17 million, correct?
That is correct.
Hunter was like the point salesman. So what was he selling?
There were multiple instances in this investigation where there were references to the father of the subject, President Biden.
But some Democrats took issue with the evidence that was presented, some pointing to what they call political meddling under the Trump administration.
They're cherry picking from the letter, right, where they say, oh, David Weiss said this, but they're not then reading the rest of the letter where David Weiss said he had full authority.
Perhaps we should discuss Ivanka Trump's investigation who was close to being charged with felony fraud after Donald Trump's personal attorney provided political contributions to the local DA. Those charges were dismissed.
Democrats repeatedly said that this 4-year-long investigation was thorough, and Ranking Member Raskin said that Hunter Biden already pled guilty to misdemeanors on not paying taxes, but the GOP says those charges should have been felonies.
And the assistant prosecutor, Leslie Wolf, said she agreed with those felony charges for tax year 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 was while Biden was president, and they wouldn't do it.
And yesterday I asked Chairman James Comer what's next for their investigation. He did not directly answer my question, but they have continuously said that they will just continue to follow the money. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskopf, NTD News.
From these federal agencies, the latest, 2 more coming from the IRS, actually testifying on the Hill today related to Hunter Biden. What do you make of all of this?
Well, first of all, let's make sure we understand these were 2 highly credible whistleblowers that we heard from today in the Oversight and Investigations Committee, and that's very important. And you know, it is so sad to see that our country has evolved to the point where the DOJ and the FBI have been politicized and weaponized and used as a political weapon. That's a sad state of affairs. And look, there are good people in the DOJ, there are good people in the IRS, there are good people in the FBI. But just like every profession, there's some bad apples, and they need to be weeded out. But it's sad to think that, there's two sets of laws here. There's a set of laws if your name's Biden, and a set of laws for everyone else. And that's what really frustrates people the most. And the other thing I want to point out here is that I find it to be really unbelievable that at this time when the whistleblowers are coming here on Capitol Hill, that Donald Trump is being investigated for his role on January 6th. That's just more than just coincidence. It's really sad.
Congressman, I just want to switch gears a bit here. You actually sit on the Committee on Energy and Commerce as well as the House Budget Committee. The president is touting Bidenomics and what he touts as successes in the economy. I want to just read out a tweet here and get your reaction. He says, the president says, real wages for the average American worker are higher than it was before the pandemic, with lower wage workers seeing the largest gains. That's Bidenomics. What's your reaction?
Well, Bidenomics, we've had enough of Bidenomics. Let me tell you, this country, I don't think, can stand a whole lot more of Bidenomics. In fact, a CNN poll has said that 66% of Americans aren't happy with the economy and the way it's performing right now. So real wages may be up and inflation's up too. Now, we've seen it come down, and that's a good thing, but it's still high above what it was when he took office. And again, you can make the argument that a lot of what has happened in our economy has been a result of the policies of this administration. It's been self-inflicted. Day one, this administration declared war on fossil fuels, and resulting in higher gasoline prices, resulting in higher inflation, resulting in higher interest rates, resulting in the mess that we have in our economy right now. So to think that this president would take responsibility and think that Bidenomics is a good thing is just ridiculous.
Now, Israeli President Isaac Herzog earlier today addressing you and your colleagues in a joint session of Congress. What was important about this address, and what is the current state of U.S.-Israel relations?
Well, first of all, I think that the president did an excellent job. I was there, I was present at the speech, and it was very positive, very encouraging, and I was very impressed. But I have to tell you, I think that the relationship is still good. It's sad, though, to think that even last night, we had 9 Democrats who voted, had the opportunity to denounce anti-Semitism, and they didn't do that. And that's a sad state of affairs. There's still people, even though Representative Jayapal walked back her remarks, it still shows a deep divide here among some members of Congress and among some people in the Democratic caucus that it's really disturbing.
Congressman, I want to get your thoughts. In a sense, would you say, or is it fair to say, that a secure and peaceful Israel also make the United States safer?
No question about it. We need Israel. Israel needs us. That's what the president said today in his speech. Again, a very encouraging speech, a very inspirational speech, making it clear that both countries need each other. And we do need Israel. They're our ally in democracy in the world, and particularly in the Middle East. And that is vitally important for us. And we always need to be aware of that.
Congressman Buddy.
Scrutinize corporate mergers.
Bidenomics is about increasing competition, not stifling competition. Anti-competitive mergers can hurt people and drive up costs as well.
The administration today proposed new guidelines used to determine whether or not to block a merger. The checklist includes examining if the merger would significantly increase concentration in highly concentrated markets or eliminate substantial competition between firms. But the U.S. Chamber of Commerce fired back, saying such new scrutiny would only chill merger activity and deny smaller companies access to the capital and expertise they need. The group has also criticized Biden's Competition Council, saying that this Washington knows the best approach will make our economy less competitive.
Supporting pro small business, pro entrepreneur, pro worker, and pro consumer. And that is, we believe, Bidenomics in action.
The White House today also announced steps to tackle so-called junk fees and lower food prices. But this Bidenomics agenda that is trying to promote does not seem to have convinced that many Americans. A new poll released today shows 62% of Americans still do not approve of Biden's handling of inflation. But the White House is pushing back.
The polls don't tell the whole story. They don't tell the full story, and we understand that.
And this Thursday, President Biden is traveling to Philadelphia to once again talk about Bidenomics. Reporting from the White House.
So how concerned are you that James Comer was the chairman of the committee, was knowingly, unknowingly working with, co-opted by a foreign agent?
I'm just concerned that the House Oversight Committee, which has a very proud history with, Congressman Waxman as chair, the great Elijah Cummings of Maryland as chair, is suddenly being compromised in a really serious way. Our legitimacy is being eroded by the tactics adopted by Chairman Comer.